Hey everybody, welcome to the video. So we are lineup building for week 2 of the NFL season over on Draftkings, and we're specifically focusing on cash game roster construction. Now, quick disclaimer, do not go out and take this lineup and put it in all of your contests. That is not the purpose of this video. You guys have to be able to make your own decisions and think for yourself. And I don't even know what the lineup's going to look like yet. So we're just kind of going through this together for the first time. I do not build my lineups until Sunday morning. But I'm trying to just look at the slate and try to build a nice, safe, solid, high floor lineup, just as an example for cash game roster construction. But before we continue, as always, if you guys could just leave a like, and if you're new to the channel, you might as well hit that subscribe button. Remember, all season long trying to help you guys become better NFL DFS players, and I cover other sports as well. So if you're going to come back to the channel each and every single day, or each and every single week, you might as well hit that subscribe button and turn the notification bell so you don't miss out whenever I post new videos. And if you want to follow me on social media, my handles are in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. And if you want to support more content over on Patreon, always much appreciated. We've got 300 plus members there. You can hop into the Discord chat, ask me questions all day, come in, hang out during the games. There's always a good time in the Discord chat. And you get access into my entire NFL DFS data sheet. I cover other sports with the data sheets as well. So if you're interested, links down below. If not, that's fine. Let's just dive into today's video. So let's start with a quarterback, and I'm going to try to plug in my favorite plays first, and we'll fill in the blanks because those guys aren't going to be as important. But I think you guys get the idea that I want to play Kyler Murray in cash this week because it really kind of opens up your lineup. Like, I have no issues at all with Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson is obviously the best quarterback for NFL DFS purposes each and every single week. He draws an amazing matchup versus Houston. He had 275 average passing yards last week, only 45 rushing yards, but he had 3 passing touchdowns, and overall just had a very, very good game. But at 8,200, he is certainly not necessary in cash games. Do I think he's a good option? Sure, but I'd much rather go with Dak Prescott or Kyler Murray in cash games. I think those are like the 2 cash game options you have this week. Yeah, there's other guys you can play, but for cash games, I mean, Dak Prescott's in that 53.5 point over-under. You definitely want exposure to Cowboys, and I think in cash games, you got to at least get one Cowboy in your lineup, whether it's Zeke, whether it's Dak Prescott, or Amari Cooper, or CeeDee Lamb, and maybe even Michael Gallup. He's more of the tournament option, but I think you got to get at least one of those guys in your lineup. But for cash game purposes, I really like Kyler Murray this week because he's kind of like Lamar Jackson light in a lot of ways. Now, the team's obviously not as good as the Ravens, but there's plenty of good options here. You got Christian Kirk, you got DeAndre Hopkins, you got Kenyon Drake. And this is a team that likes to play fast, too. Now, the matchup versus Washington, they really struggled last year defensively, but this year they are going to be improved. But Kyler Murray at 6,100, he's a dual-threat running back, a dual-threat quarterback. And if you look at what they did last week, he threw the ball 40 times, completed 26 of his passes. Now, only 230 passing yards and one passing touchdown. But the thing I'm most interested in, if he's going to keep running like this, you can sign me up for Kyler Murray at 6,100 pretty much each and every single week, no matter the matchup, because he had 13 rushing attempts for 91 rushing yards, 7 yards per carry, and a rushing touchdown. Look, the rushing upside is going to get it done for me in cash games. And he's got one of the best receivers in the league to throw the ball to. So Kyler Murray for cash, I feel like he's the best safe choice, and he's going to more than likely be the highest owned quarterback on this slate. Now, running backs, it gets a little bit more interesting here. I think you pretty much just lock in Derrick Henry and Jonathan Taylor. But the thing I'm struggling with this weekend is that I really want to play Zeke too. But the problem is I can't fit Davante Adams and Zeke in together if I want to play Derrick Henry and Jonathan Taylor as well. Not saying that Jonathan Taylor's expensive, but I can't fit in the trio of Zeke, Henry, and Adams this week. It's just kind of impossible, and I can kind of show you guys that, how low you get on salary. So let's say we plug in Zeke really quick, and then we plug in Henry. Now we have, what, 4,600 left per lineup, which isn't bad, but now we're going to spend up at wide receiver because I don't want to go pure pump plays at wide receiver. There's a lot of good value like Paris Campbell, Taylor Hilton's 5,700, you got CeeDee Lamb at 4,700, you got Perriman at 3,800, Scotty Miller I think is 4,100, Corey Davis is 4,000. So if you want to go the double spend up running back route and go with Zeke and Henry, I have no issue with that at all. You can throw Jonathan Taylor in the flex spot. But man, I don't feel comfortable not having Amari Cooper and Davante Adams in my lineup. So I'm feeling like Zeke might be the odd man out there. I think that clearly the top 3 running backs on this slate are Zeke Elliott, Derrick Henry, and Jonathan Taylor. But I don't think I'm going to be able to fit in all 3. So for this example, I'm going to roll with Derrick Henry as my RB1. I mean, look, he's going up against Jacksonville. It's a very soft matchup. Last season, they were 31st DVA versus the run, allowed nearly 130 rushing yards per game, and about over a rushing touchdown per game as well. And week 1, the volume was there for Derrick Henry. He had 31 rushing attempts, over 100 rushing yards. He also had 3 targets, which was nice to see, too. He had a designed screenplay, which was nice, getting him involved in the passing game, which they said they were going to do in the offseason. And he only scored 19.1 fantasy points, but As a 9-point favorite at home versus one of the worst defenses in the NFL, Derrick Henry should absolutely smash here, and he has really good history versus Jacksonville. Not really something I'm putting a whole lot of stock in, but just over the course of his career, he's done very well versus Jacksonville. I believe he also had that 200+ yard game with 4 touchdowns versus Jacksonville as well, with that 99-yard touchdown. So I love Derrick Henry. I think he is the best running back play on the slate projection-wise, and I would feel pretty comfortable plugging him in as my RB1. Again, I don't love not having Zeke, but you can't play everybody on the slate, so I'm going to pass on Zeke just in this example. If you want to put Zeke in cash games, then I might even do it anyway. But as for this example, I'm going to roll Derrick Henry as RB1. And then the obvious choice is going to be Jonathan Taylor as RB2. Obviously, Marlon Mack with the Achilles injury, he is going to be out for the rest of the season, and Jonathan Taylor is going to be the RB1 here. And everyone's excited to use Jonathan Taylor. He's going to be the chalk of all chalk. He should probably be the highest owned player on the slate, let alone running back. He should be the highest owned player on the entire slate. He's got a great offensive line. If you're looking at the PFF ratings, the Colts have the biggest run blocking advantage of the entire week. Minnesota's defense looked awful last week. And this game has a pretty decently high total too. I believe it's at like 48 or 48.5 right now, and they're also 3-point favorites. And I just like Jonathan Taylor. Obviously, he's a very talented running back. He's going to have Phillip Rivers dump-offs. And we saw that last week, too. Now, Nyheim Hines is going to be involved, too, especially in the passing game. But he still had 6 targets last week, caught all 6 of them for 67 receiving yards. So if he can get us around 15 to 20 rushing attempts with around 5 receptions or around 5 targets, that's going to be just fine at 5,700. So you're going to eat him and eat the chalk in cash games with Jonathan Taylor. If you want to go with Nyheim Hines in tournaments, I don't hate that as a pivot just to get off the chalk here, because the guy's not bulletproof, but I mean, his price is only going to go up as the season goes on. So at 5,700, I think he is pretty much the easiest play on the slate, to be honest. So as of right now, we have Kyler Murray, Derrick Henry, and Jonathan Taylor. And I can see a lot of lineups starting this way, and they're all going to be very chalky. So I'm kind of liking that setup right now because you're getting the volume with Derrick Henry. You know, he's probably going to get around 30 touches in this game versus a very poor Jacksonville defense, especially versus the run. Then you get Jonathan Taylor, the rookie, but he's now going to be the starter. It's also a good matchup versus Minnesota. He's going to be involved in the passing game, only 5,700. He makes a lot of sense. And Kyler Murray, 6,100. He's cheap. He can throw the ball. He can run the ball. He's in a good offense. They run their plays typically pretty fast. They run at a pretty high pace. So, yeah, I like the way this lineup starts. Now, going to the wide receiver position, I feel like we just plug in Davante Adams. Now, it's a pretty hefty price tag, and I typically like spending it for running backs more so than wide receivers, which is kind of why I'm going flip-flop on Zeke Elliott and Davante Adams, but I don't know. I'm really thinking that Davante Adams is kind of going to be like Michael Thomas last year. He's pretty much like the Christian McCaffrey of running backs, where you can pretty much just lock in the volume each and every single week, and you don't have to worry about the ups or downs like most receivers. So I'm liking Davante Adams. He's pretty much the only guy here, and he does a really good matchup versus Detroit. He's going to be on a rookie corner for the most part, going up against the Ohio State guy, Jeff Okudah, who's a very high draft pick, who's probably going to be pretty good in the NFL. But it's his first NFL start. He's going up against one of the best wide receivers in football. And if you're looking at the volume last week for Davante Adams, I mean, he had 17 targets. He caught 14 of them for 156 yards and 2 receiving touchdowns for nearly 50 DraftKings points. Look, it's a really good matchup versus Detroit. They were one of the worst teams versus the pass last season. They lost Darius Slay, and he's pretty much the only guy that Aaron Rodgers can really trust for the most part. Yeah, MVS and Lazard can have their games, but Davante Adams is the guy here, and I absolutely love the spot for Adams, so I feel really comfortable plugging him in. Probably going to be one of the highest known players on the slate, just due to recency bias in week 1, but he's also a smash play once again. His price probably isn't reflecting what he should be. He should be around that 9K range, for being honest. So then going down a little bit, I definitely can't pay up for Hopkins. That's just going to kill my salary that I have remaining. I'm not playing Hill in cash games. Jones is a fine tournament option, but not someone I'm going to go with in cash games. I absolutely love that Dallas-Atlanta game, especially in tournaments. I also like it in cash games too, but Julio Jones is more of a tournament play. Thielen's fine as like a run back with a cold stack. So if you want to go with Rivers, Paris Campbell, and T.Y. Hilton, I don't hate running it back with Thielen. I don't think Thielen's getting really any love this week, and look, he was fine his first start. I mean, he had 8 targets, 6 catches for 110 yards and 2 touchdowns. We can't expect that performance each and every single week, but I don't mind Thielen as a run back in cold stacks. That is a pretty high over-under, which has a pretty close spread as well. Let's see, though. So the guy I'm plugging in, it's Amari Cooper at 6,300. He's a pretty obvious choice on this slate. He's going to be one of the higher wide receivers as well. And again, the purpose of this video is just playing the obvious guys, trying to find a safe floor, getting guys that are going to get a lot of touches, are on the field a lot, and are going to get a lot of targets. And that's what everyone we've had listed here is going to get this week in week 2. And Amari Cooper is going to be one of those guys as well. He had a massive 14 targets in his first week. Wasn't really too far down the field. Only had 81 receiving yards, but 10 catches, 18.1 DraftKings points. And the thing is with Amari Cooper, he typically plays really, really well at home, especially as a favorite. If you're looking at his splits at home have always been much better, and so has Dallas in the passing game as well. And I think DraftKings just mispriced Amari Cooper here. He should be above 7K, and he gets a really good matchup versus Atlanta. They got absolutely shredded by the Seahawks last week, and the Cowboys have one of the highest team totals in the slate. I believe it's at around 29 right now, really close to 30. 53.5 point over-under is going to be a lot of points to be scored here. And that's why I'm kind of feeling okay not having Zeke in cash. Like, I think he's an amazing cash option. If you want to play Zeke in cash, go for it. I'm actually going to try to find a way to do it, but I don't think I'm going to be able to. But I kind of like the passing game a little bit more here, so that's why I like getting Amari Cooper in, because if you're not playing Zeke, I think you have to have at least one of the Dallas Cowboys pass catchers, because someone's going to go off on this team, and I want exposure to it. So I love Amari Cooper, 6,300. The volume's there. He's a very talented wide receiver. I know he's dealing with the injury heading into the week, because he was popped up on the injury report in practice, but he's going to be good to go here. I wouldn't be too concerned about it. I love the spot for Amari Cooper. Just too cheap, and honestly, he's probably my favorite wide receiver play on the slate. I love Adams, but just point per dollar wise, I definitely love Amari Cooper. Now, at this point, I got a lot of expensive guys here, and I only have 3,900 left per player, but you can also throw in a defense in there, so it's going to open up a little bit. And it's really not too bad, because there's plenty of value plays on this slate. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to plug in the defense that I like the most. That's going to be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think they're going to be the highest on defense here. They're, nearly 10-point favorites at home. They actually got a pretty solid defense, and Carolina's best thing they can do is run the ball with Christian McCaffrey, and they had one of the best run defenses in the league last season. They were second DVA versus the run. They're also 12th DVA versus the pass, too, and I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense should be fine here. They were okay versus the Saints. Not fantasy points-wise. They gave up quite a bit of touchdowns, but they only allowed 189 passing yards and 82 rushing yards, which really isn't that bad, but they were getting scored on. But the Panthers' offense definitely isn't as prolific as the Saints. The Saints got Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara, Drew Brees, and some other good options, so it's going to be a little bit softer here going up against the Carolina Panthers. And at home, I think we can plug in the Buccaneers as the chalk defense of the week. Now that gives us $4,300 to work with. And as of right now, I'm at tight end. I think we'll go to the tight end spot, and then we'll fill out wide receiver 3 and flex at the end. So we're going to go to the tight end spot, and there's quite a few ways we can go. Like, there's plenty of good value tight ends. Obviously, with $4,300 left, I cannot spend up for a guy like Travis Kelce or Mark Andrews, so I'm going to have to scroll down a bit. I like both. I prefer Mark Andrews over Travis Kelce this week, but that's just simply not going to be able to happen in this lineup example. So we're going to have to scroll down a bit. I like Jonnu Smith with no A.J. Brown, so it's going to open up things for Jonnu Smith and Corey Davis. But I'm actually going to try to get a little bit cheaper here. So let's see if I can find my guy. So Logan Thomas, I like Logan Thomas quite a bit. I think he's an excellent option versus Arizona. They were a team that really struggled versus tight ends last year, like the absolute worst team versus tight ends. Pretty much any single tight end that faced them did very well, but I'm really interested in the volume that he had. He had 8 targets last weekend, 4 receptions, which isn't great, 37 receiving yards, but he did find the end zone, and if he's going to get me like 5 to 10 targets here versus a pretty poor Arizona team versus tight ends, I assume they're going to be improved this season, and they kind of stopped George Kittle last week, but only 3,600, I like that. If we can fit him in, I don't mind that at all, but the guy I kind of have in mind right now is Jordan Reed or Mo ALIE-COX. So Mo ALIE-COX is only, I believe he's 3,000 if I can find him. And there's a lot of guys that are 3,000. So yeah, Mo ALIE-COX. So Jack Doyle is not going to be playing in this game. So Mo ALIE-COX here is going to be the tight end 1. And this guy is a monster of a man. He's going to be a red zone target. And Phillip Rivers obviously has no issues throwing the ball to tight ends. We saw that over the years with Antonio Gates and Hunter Henry. So at only 3,000, I think he is certainly viable here. I'm going to keep going down lower for the guy I have in mind right now because he's dirt cheap and George Kittle is out. But I think there's a good chance Mo ALIE-COX could find the end zone maybe once or twice here. I don't think he's going to have a big yardage game, but the upside's there. It's a good matchup versus Minnesota. Pretty high over-under in this game, and I think Phillip Rivers can get him the ball quite a bit. Not quite a bit, but maybe 2 to 5 targets. I think it's certainly viable. And at only 3,000, we do not need much. But the guy I kind of want to plug in here is Jordan Reed at 2,600. This guy is dirt cheap, and we know he's good. It's just I feel like he gets a concussion pretty much every single week. So there's obviously going to be injury concern here, so don't be surprised if you play Jordan Reed and you see at halftime he's not back into the game because he's got an injury. Hoping not. I hate when guys get injured, but Jordan Reed's a very talented tight end. And with George Kittle out, he's going to get pretty much all the run here, and only 2,600, where we do not need much. And we know Jimmy Garoppolo likes using the tight end. He got the ball to George Kittle a ton last season. Now, I don't really think Jordan Reed's going to put up similar numbers, but he should look to get him the ball. And it's a really nice price point. So we're going to plug him in at 2,600, and he really opens up the lineup. So as you can see, we now have $5,200 remaining, which is actually pretty comfortable because we just need a wide receiver 3 and a flex at this point. Now, typically, I like to go 3 running backs in cash games, but I feel like I might be able to get away with a wide receiver here. We'll see what we have left. We're going to go to wide receiver 3. And I think we might be able to see what we can fit in. Because, again, I don't know really what we can fit in here. Maybe. So someone I really like with Chris Godwin out, I did not have him on my final thoughts video. It was Mike Evans. Because I had him in my first look video. But then it looked like Chris Godwin was going to come back right before I recorded that video, and then they said that he's still likely not to play. So I think Mike Evans here versus Carolina is a really soft matchup. They should have one of the worst defenses in the league, and with no Chris Godwin, it's pretty much just going to be Mike Evans and Scotty Miller for the most part. I like both, but if I can afford Mike Evans at only 6,400, I wouldn't mind that at all. Now, week 1, you can't really put too much stock into it because he's playing a little bit injured. And he typically really does struggle versus Marshawn Lattimore. Now, he caught a touchdown at the very end. He had a 2-yard touchdown catch. He had 4 targets, 1 catch. It was for a touchdown, though, so he ended up with 7.2 points. But he should be good to go. He practiced fully. And as long as he's healthy at 6,400 versus Carolina, you can sign me up. Tom Brady's going to get him the ball. Now, I know he probably doesn't have the best skill set for Tom Brady because Tom Brady's not really someone that's going to launch it down the field. He's more of a check down artist for the most part. So I really think Scotty Miller is actually a very, very viable play here. But I don't mind the price at 6,400. I kind of not all in, but I'm all about that. And there's a ton of upside here. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers actually have one of the higher team totals on the slate as well. So it's going to go somewhere. And I think Mike Evans can actually have a decent portion of that. So we're going to plug him in. I feel pretty good about that. And then that leaves us $4,000 remaining, which I believe we can fit in someone like Corey Davis because I think Scotty Miller's 4,100. I really don't want to go 2 Tampa Bay Buccaneers wide receivers in cash games. So we'll see what we have left. And again, I typically like to get 3 running backs in, but I don't mind this build as of right now. So at 4K, I think we can fit in someone like Corey Davis. And if that's the case, I feel pretty good about that. There's a lot of guys that are 4K, though. So let me just search his. Oh, never mind. He's right there. Yeah, $4,000. And this is a really good matchup versus Jacksonville. And the big thing is that A.J. Brown is going to be out in this game. And with A.J. Brown playing last week versus Denver, Corey Davis still had 8 targets. He had 7 catches for 101 yards. Didn't get into the end zone, but he was heavily targeted, and he looked pretty good, too. He made some pretty good catches, and at only $4,000 versus a pretty poor Jacksonville defense, and the Titans do have a pretty decently high team total, I think plugging in Corey Davis at $4,000 actually isn't too bad at all. And that kind of evens out our lineup as well. So we got a lot of high volume guys, a lot of guys in good spots. So Kyler Murray going up against Washington, I think they're an improved defense, and they got a pretty good defensive line, but you get the rushing upside as well. They played a fast pace, and he's just too cheap. Derrick Henry, amazing spot versus Jacksonville. The guy's probably going to get around 30 touches, and it would not surprise me if he got into the end zone 2 or 3 times. If we're being honest, I'd be very, very shocked if he doesn't score in this game. Jonathan Taylor, he's the chalk of the chalk. He's just the cheap running back. Everyone's plugging in. Marlon Mack's out. He's just simply not priced correctly. It's a good spot versus Minnesota. DAVANTE Adams, Amari Cooper, your target hogs. These guys could honestly get close to 40 targets combined, and they're also in very good spots versus Detroit and Atlanta. Mike Evans, kind of a bit of a iffy play because he just doesn't, I don't know, his skill set isn't great with Tom Brady's. I prefer the underneath guys like Chris Godwin, like Scotty Miller, but at only 6,400, Tom Brady doesn't suck, so he should be able to get him the ball. And then Bruce Arians said he wants to get Mike Evans the ball as well. So at 6,400, a really soft matchup versus Carolina. I feel pretty good about that. There's a good chance he can smash that price tag of 6,400. Jordan Reed, he's just dirt cheap. No George Kittle, so he's going to be the tight end 1. If you can give me a tight end 1 with talent at 2,600, I will take it. And then Corey Davis, it's just with A.J. Brown being out. I don't love pairing him with Derrick Henry, but the way this lineup worked out, and it's a really good matchup for the Titans, and they're both just too cheap. So like Corey Davis as the wide receiver 1 on the Titans, and the Titans also threw the ball 43 times. Now, I can't expect that to happen each and every single week, but if they throw the ball like over 30 times here, Corey Davis should get around 10 targets here. So definitely like Corey Davis at that price tag. And the Buccaneers defense, they kind of just fit at the end. I know I filled them out before I fit in my tight end and wide receiver 3 in flex, but they're the defense I'm kind of looking that I want to play the most here, just because, they should be able to stop Christian McCaffrey. They did last season versus CMC on a Thursday night game. And if they can contain the run, they should be able to make Teddy Bridgewater make some mistakes. Now, Teddy Bridgewater is not a bad quarterback. He's got some good options in DJ Moore. Obviously, he can throw the ball to CMC. Then you have Robbie Anderson as well. But they're a pretty solid defense, and not one I really want to pick on too much. Now, they did struggle versus wide receivers last season, but as nearly double-digit favorites at home, I'll take the Buccaneers defense. And I feel like that's a pretty safe lineup for the most part. All these guys are going to have high volume. Most of these guys are in good spots. But again, do not just take this lineup and run with it. I just made that off the scratch here for the first time ever for this video. And there's many other ways you can go on this slate. This is not the only way you can go. You can use Zeke in cash games. So if we can try it, we can try to make a Zeke, Henry, and Jonathan Taylor cash build. So I was kind of interested to see what this would look like. So let's plug all three of these guys in. Let's get Taylor in the flex spot. And now we only have $4,400 to work with. So I feel like we're going to have to plug in Reed just to save some money because we're going to run out of money pretty quick. I'd like to put in the Buccaneers defense. They're only $2,900. So that's going to leave us $5,500 left, which is actually doable. I don't think we're going to be able to fit in Davante Adams, though. We might be able to get Amari Cooper, but we will see here. So let's try to fit in Adams. I don't think it's going to work. Well, that's actually not too bad at $4,250 because then we can plug in Corey Davis, or we could go with the Scotty Miller, whatever you prefer. So Corey Davis, that's $4,500 left, and I think we can fit in Paris Campbell, actually. So let me see if that will work. Yeah, we can actually go with Deontay Johnson, who I also like quite a bit, and Paris Campbell. So that's actually not too bad because I definitely like the Colts wide receivers here versus Minnesota. They got absolutely torched last week versus Davante Adams. So that's actually not a bad build either. You get Kyler Murray, you can get the 3-star running backs and Zeke Elliott, Derrick Henry, and Jonathan Taylor, and you can get Davante Adams in. So I actually don't hate that way of life either. I don't love not having Amari Cooper, but substituting Amari Cooper with the run game with Zeke Elliott, it's a fine trade-off. Because Zeke Elliott's going to get around 30 touches, while Amari Cooper is going to get around 10 to 15 targets, although he's going to be pretty efficient with his targets. But I don't mind that either. So there's a couple of ways we can go. Again, just don't copy these lineups. I'm just making these on the fly, so there's not a ton of thought consideration of these, but there's definitely a few ways you can go, and I actually kind of like the way that looked as well if you want the 3 stud running backs. But anyway, guys, I hope this video was helpful. If it was, make sure you leave a like, and if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Really helps me out. Really do appreciate it. I'll have my core plays video posted tomorrow morning. I'll have it scheduled to upload around 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning, so you can look forward to that. If you guys want to play NASCAR DFS, I'll be going live at 5 p.m. Eastern Day. If you want to come in and ask me questions, we are at Bristol, which is a very, very fun track for DFS purpose, and it's also very fun to watch as well. But again, hope this video was helpful, and I'll see you guys tomorrow, I guess.